Coming up, what's up? And I mean up with these drones that are flying overhead in various places. I'll give you my thoughts about it. I'll discuss how woke ideology is going the way of Soviet communism, which is to say, down, down, down. And podcaster and radio host Jenna Ellis joins me. We're going to talk about how Trump and his team can hit the ground running in January. Hey, if you're watching on YouTube or Rumble or listening on Apple, Google, or Spotify, please subscribe to my channel. This is the Dinesh D'Souza podcast.
America needs this voice. The times are crazy. In a time of confusion, division, and lies, we need a brave voice of reason, understanding, and truth. This is the Dinesh D'Souza podcast.
There are mysterious drones that are somehow flying overhead in different parts of the country. And many of us are trying to figure out what the heck is going on. The drone sightings appear to have begun in New Jersey. And for a while there, it was something that you could rather easily dismiss because it seemed like, it's sort of the good old, is it a plane, is it a bird, that it's easy to make a false identification. In fact, even recently, I see that my old debating partner, Michael Shermer, basically says, and he's being sarcastic, he goes, well, it's really clever of those Russians or Iranians or aliens to make drones that look a lot like airplanes, they look a lot like gliders, they look a lot like stars. So I think Shermer is implying that even up to now, we don't need to take all of this seriously because what you just have is citizens looking up in the sky and making, much ado about nothing. But then I see one of the state representatives of New Jersey saying, this is a quite serious matter and not something that can be so easily dismissed because, first of all, we're not talking about a drone or two. We're talking about a lot of them. And now we're talking about drones flying all over the place. Here's an article, a headline, Channel 5, drones spotted in Southern California. Whoa. Then I see that drones are being seen at over or near military bases. And so I don't think it's enough. Adam Kinzinger was on CNN. And he says, these are just airplanes. They're not drones. They're planes. They're small planes or they're big planes and people are making a big... But I don't think this really is satisfactory simply because of the multiplication of the different accounts of these. And I think even at the highest levels of the Democratic Party, I see Chuck Schumer. I'm just going to read his post. I'm pushing for answers amid these drone sightings. I'm calling on Mayorkas to deploy special drone detection tech across New York and New Jersey. And so Schumer recognizes that this is something that needs to be looked into. Again, Mayorkas, as expected, is no help at all. This guy was on TV over the last day or so and sputtering absolute nonsense about this. First of all, he was implying, giving the Mayorkas helplessness routine, which we've seen so many times, on the border. Mayorkas is like, well, what can I do? We're trying to get a border bill passed that will solve this problem, but otherwise there's nothing else we can do. So this is feigned helplessness. This is a guy who doesn't want to do anything about the border, pretending that his hands are tied. And he was doing pretty much the same routine with regard to the drones. Now, there are a couple of theories here, and there have been some somewhat wild ideas put out there about these drones. The Defense Department, by the way, has said that these are not our drones. We're not responsible for these drones. But it seems to me that if you're not responsible for the drones, you should know what the drones are. I mean, it's hard for me to believe that you can have multiple flying objects kind of all over the United States or in a number of places in the United States, and the Defense Department, the government doesn't really know what they are. Well, if you don't know what they are, and citizens are concerned about them, as they should be, you would think that you would want to go find out right away, and you would take measures to do that. But it looks to me like there's a curious kind of lassitude. Lassitude just means like lazy indifference to this drone phenomenon. And could it be that these are foreign drones that are being deployed? The Defense Department is worried but doesn't want to say anything to the American people so as not to cause a panic or an alarm. That's possibility number one. Possibility number two, as I see it, is the drones are ours. And by ours, I don't mean mine or yours. This is, but the drones are being somehow deployed by our own government for its own purposes, which remain unknown because they have been undisclosed. And so this is something where I think we do need to know what is going on. The Trump put out a post, and this is now several days ago. I'm quoting it: "Mystery drone sightings all over the country. Can this really be happening without our government's knowledge? I don't think so. Let the public know, and now. Otherwise, shoot them down. DJT." So here, with this customary clarity, what Trump is saying is, look, it doesn't make any sense to have all these drones all over the place with us not knowing about them. I mean, this takes incompetence to a whole new level. And so Trump is saying, we actually do know, but the government needs to fess up. They need to say what's going on. Now, if this is somehow connected with some military secrets, well, don't reveal the secrets, but say nevertheless, hey, listen, you have nothing to fear. Not because we don't know what's going on, that is a reason to fear, but rather we don't know what's going on. These are our drones, and we're doing some necessary surveillance for a legitimate public purpose. All right, say that. But Trump recognizes that you are dealing with people of legendary idiocy and incompetence, and that's why he says otherwise. The otherwise is a way of saying, this regime is so incompetent. They're such blundering fools, whether it comes to Afghanistan or comes to so many other things. By the way, not the border. The border is a deliberate action by the Biden regime. They've been actually very competent in opening up the border. That was their intention, and they've carried it out. It's kind of like saying, Obama wasn't incompetent in reducing the power of the United States. Obama wasn't incompetent in allowing the Arab Spring. Obama wasn't incompetent in getting rid of Mubarak, our ally in Egypt, and bringing in the Muslim Brotherhood. Those were Obama's goals. He was actually quite competent in achieving them. But in this case, these people, this could be a case of mammoth incompetence. And then Trump goes, well, do the normal thing, which is bring down a drone. You don't have to shoot them all down right away. Shoot one down and take a good look at it. So if you don't know what it is, you now do. And then you can make intelligent decisions about how to proceed from there. So once again, I think we're seeing disturbing indifference, disturbing lack of seriousness, an attempt to confuse, mislead, and gaslight the public from people like Mayorkas. A Biden regime that is so out of control that we just can't wait for these people to get out of there and have the refreshing sight of a new administration, our team, if you will, taking over the reins of power. Open an IRA in gold with Birch Gold, and you get free silver shipped directly to your home. That's right. It's the most wonderful time of the year, the only time of the year that Birch Gold gives away a free 1-ounce silver eagle for every $5,000 purchased. And here's the best part. You don't have to pay a penny out of pocket. Simply convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold, and Birch Gold will send you your free silver coins directly to your home. Now, you might be thinking, hey, why do I need to diversify into gold? My guy's headed to D.C., things are good. Well, yes, they are, but an administration trying to reverse a $36 trillion national debt in just 4 years, well, that's a bit like a field mouse trying to stop a freight train. We have a huge amount to pay on the debt, interest on the debt, and then the principal. So take action now to protect your savings. Text Dinesh to 989898 before December 18th for a free information kit on gold and how to claim your eligibility for free silver on qualifying purchases from Birch Gold. Do this before December 18th. How do you do it? Text Dinesh to the number 989898 for peace of mind that lasts longer than 4 years. Are you feeling overwhelmed by the increasing cost of health insurance? Have you had enough of not having control over your healthcare dollars? Introducing ShareRight. It's healthcare done the right way. At ShareRight, you're not just a number, you're part of a caring community. And forget about paying excessive premiums. With ShareRight, you stand to save 30 to 50% compared to health insurance. So think about what you could do with all those savings. But it's more than just savings. ShareRight ensures you have access to the care you deserve precisely when you need it, from routine checkups to unexpected emergencies. With ShareRight, your healthcare is their top priority. Empower yourself today. Take control of your healthcare costs. Visit shareright.org/Dinesh to learn more. See how much you can save. Visit shareright.org/Dinesh. That's shareright.org/Dinesh for healthcare done the right way. Have you noticed that since the election, there has not only been a kind of refreshing new mood in the country, a sense of palpable relief, almost like a massive weight is lifted off our shoulders. I know that for me, the most overwhelming emotion on election night wasn't even so much exhilaration, although I did have some of that, but relief. Like, we're not going to be flying off the cliff after all. There is a chance for us, and a chance. It doesn't mean we'll do it, but it means we can do it. Turn the vehicle around, move into open fields, and have a brighter day or days in front of us. Since the election, I'm seeing a real opening up of people's willingness to speak out, not just in favor of Trump. That by itself has been fascinating to see. More and more people essentially saying either I voted for Trump, or I'm excited about Trump, or in some cases, it's time for me to go to Mar-a-Lago to pay tribute to Trump. And that's been a very interesting sight, hasn't it? Beginning with, Mark Zuckerberg makes the pilgrimage to Mar-a-Lago and then subsequently contributes $1 million to the inauguration. Then I see that Jeff Bezos has committed the same, and others. Mark Benioff, who's been a real thorn in the side of Trump, a guy who's been a leftist. Well, I think what I'm learning about some of these guys, Benioff is a really good example. He's the head of a company called Salesforce. These people aren't really leftists. But what happens is when they see the pendulum swinging left, they go left. So here's Benioff promoting social justice and, list your pronouns and giving money to all kinds of disgraceful causes. And then when Trump wins, he's like, the pendulum is now swung the other way. So suddenly Benioff is now sounding like a free market capitalist. And it's hard to believe, because I think of people sort of ideologically, like, this guy's on the left. Has he moved right? No, he hasn't moved right. He's one of these guys who surfs on the existing political wave. In some ways, you could almost see Lindsey Graham as a Benioff equivalent in politics. Have you noticed that Lindsey Graham is always singing wildly the praises of the president, whoever it is? When it was Trump, there's Lindsey Graham. Trump is the greatest. I'm with Trump all the way, and so on. Biden, suddenly Lindsey Graham has discovered the virtues of Biden. He's excellent. He's making a really good job. Trump is reelected. Now he's all behind Trump. We've got to get his nominees through, and so on. So this is an interesting phenomenon. But one of the ways you know you're winning is the opportunists are now coming over to your side. So we shouldn't actually be too harsh on the opportunists. We actually want them, but we also got to realize that these people are kind of unreliable. And by that I mean, if the winds seem to be blowing the other way, they're going to be quite quickly departing our side. So they're on our side as long as they think we are the cool people, we are the winning team. And there's no doubt that Trump has made Republicanism or MAGAism cool. Now, let me go beyond this to say that there has also been not only a rising temperature of attacks and ridicule on DEI, but the DEI regime is collapsing. It's collapsing not only in corporate America, where you see a number of corporations now basically saying, I'm not going to do DEI, or we're going to back off from DEI, or we're going to do a lot less of it. But even, and this is even more telling, universities. Universities basically invented DEI. They institutionalized it. They exported it to these corporations. So to see these universities backing down, particularly the left-wing universities. Now, again, there's a long way to go here. I would not say that a significant amount of universities have done this, or the majority. But I did see an article just this morning in the Chronicle of Higher Education, and they go, here's a map of the way the DEI chips, if you will, are falling throughout academia. So the Chronicle of Higher Education, which is kind of the official newspaper of American university campuses, is noting that this is a real phenomenon in academia. And I think it's following a very interesting three-step stage of what psychologists call preference falsification. And here's what I want to explicate a little bit. What are we talking about with preference falsification? So think of it this way. Well, the model here is Eastern Europe after communism, but I guess what I'm suggesting is that the same model applies to the collapse of wokeism. And here are the three stages. First, hidden tensions. In other words, individuals are holding beliefs throughout the system that contradict the official ideology, right? But the individuals don't want to speak up. Why? Because if they speak up, they're going to be attacked, they're going to be demonized, they're going to be punished, they may lose their job, they may be demoted, they may be socially ostracized. And so you have this gap, and under communism, by the way, it existed for decades, between people thinking one thing in private and the regime saying something else in public. And the same is true of DEI. For the last several years, perhaps even longer than that, you've had this public-private gap. This is what I really think, but you know what? I can't say it. That's stage one. Stage two is that some cracks begin to appear in the official ideology, and this can happen because two groups within the ideology who are both approved groups start fighting with each other. The feminists start fighting with the trans people, for example, and that exposes some cracks, right? Because these are both supposed to be sort of victim groups that have a special kind of totem and a special credential, but guess what? They both can't be, right? They're fighting with each other. Or what could happen is that some brave people, either in academia or in the culture, or running for president, I'm thinking here of people like Elon Musk, I'm thinking of here of people like Trump, they just step forward and start making cracks in this official ideology. They say what everybody else is afraid to say, and the moment they start saying it, everybody else notices, hey, listen, Elon Musk is saying it, Trump is saying it. Well, maybe I can say it too. So it gives permission for people to be a little more bold because there are leaders who are kind of blazing the path ahead of them. And then we come to stage three, which is sort of the cascade. And that is that more and more people start saying it. And the more and more people start saying it, it gives permission to others to say it. And so the cost of being a dissenter begins to go down. It's like you can bash DEI, everybody's bashing DEI. And so there's a multiplier effect as people gain confidence from, they see their neighbors saying it, they read articles about it. So they're like, well, guess what? I can come out of the closet with my beliefs because I'm not going to be singled out for punishment because lots of people are now in this sort of dissenting camp. And then the final stage, the best stage of all, is system collapse. And that is that the whole regime, the whole nonsense, the whole emperor has no clothes phenomenon comes crashing down because basically it becomes obvious that kind of nobody believed this BS in the first place. They were just intimidated. They were just shut down. They were just cowed. They were being censored. So in reality, this is not any kind of ideology that is worthy of respect or support. And frankly, even many of the people who were on the team were just mouthing slogans, or they were opportunistically doing things because that's how they got a paycheck, that's how they got promotions. So the whole industry comes crashing down. That is exactly what happened with communism in Eastern Europe. At some point, nobody believed it. Even the people who were officially in charge of it began to run away from it and change their resumes and never list that I used to be an instructor in communist ideology at East Berlin University. You kind of wipe that off your resume. And I think that may well be the fate of some of these DEI people. They have had a nice racket going for quite a long time, but I think that racket is coming to an end. And the point is, it's not coming to an end sort of slowly, step by step, incrementally. Sometimes you have things that happen slowly and then suddenly. MyPillow is excited to announce that the MyPillow Christmas extravaganza is finally here. Get the season's flannel sheets for as low as $59.98. They won't last long. Get them while you can. The famous My Slippers, these haven't been on sale for over a year. Regular price $119.98, but now for a limited time, $59.98. The 6-piece towel sets back in stock, limited quantities, but just $29.98. So with hundreds of MyPillow products, there's something for everyone on your Christmas list. Bathrobes, duvets, quilts, down comforters, and so much more. Here's the number to call, 800-876-0227. Again, it's 800-876-0227, or go to mypillow.com. Use promo code Dinesh. You save on all the MyPillow products. Flannel sheets, $59.98. 6-piece towel sets, just $29.98. And let's remember, they're extending the 60-day money-back guarantee until March 1st, 2025. Plus, all orders $75 or more ship absolutely free. New Year coming up, guys. I'd like to invite you to check out my Locals channel and consider becoming an annual subscriber. I post a lot of exclusive content there, including content that's censored on other social media platforms. On Locals, you get Dinesh Unchained, Dinesh Uncensored. You can also interact with me directly. I do a live weekly Q&A every Tuesday. No topic is off limits. I've also got a movie page on Locals with some very cool films. 2000 Mules is up there. So is Police State. And of course, you know about the latest film, Vindicating Trump. If you're an annual subscriber, you can stream and watch all this movie content for free. It's included with your subscription. So check out the channel. It's dinesh.locals.com. I'd love to have you along for this great ride. Again, it's dinesh.locals.com. Guys, I'm delighted to welcome back to the podcast my friend Jenna Ellis. She's an attorney. She was personal counsel to the 45th President of the United States, which is, of course, Trump. She's host of Jenna Ellis in the Morning and On Demand with Jenna Ellis, which you can get wherever you get podcasts. Her book, The Legal Basis for a Moral Constitution. You can follow her on X at Real Jenna Ellis. Jenna, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. I got to say, Trump
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Trump seems to be kind of on a roll here. I see that, first of all, he's making this grandiose announcement that the United States is on the cusp of a new golden age. And then I see this morning he's standing with this diminutive head of SoftBank, a Japanese company that is evidently committing to put $100 billion into the United States. And Trump is sort of cajoling the guy to like kick it up to $200 billion. So I was kind of chuckling because to me, like you see the art of the deal playing itself out right in front of our eyes on the podium. What do you make of these rather remarkable developments before the guy even takes office?
I love it. This is classic Trump, right? I mean, this is what we've missed over the last 4 years because there's no way that Joe Biden could ever do that. He wouldn't even know that he was on that stage or at that podium. He'd probably be trying to high five the air instead. And Kamala Harris could never do something like this. And so I think that the hope that we have for next year and the next 4 years is what Trump did his first term, which was really to have a booming economy, be America first, and let world leaders and investors know that he's serious, and he's serious about making the best deals that are in the best interest of America. And that's exactly what everyone should want. And so regardless of whether you're a Republican, Democrat, or somewhere in between, this is exactly what you want from a president of the United States.
I mean, isn't it strange somehow that this isn't what every president is doing like all day long? You know, in other words, we have this country with all its talent and natural resources. You have the country which is full of all these entrepreneurs kind of waiting to be given the signal, the green light to go. And it's as if the president simply has to sort of step back, maybe create an environment where it's attractive to do business in this giant American market, and then let it happen. And Trump, I think, knows that intuitively. And all these other guys like Biden, it's kind of unclear what they do all day. But at the end of the day, if you say, what did this guy do for America, you're hard-pressed to answer.
Yeah, well, Karine Jean-Pierre certainly was pontificating and, in my view, just outright lying from the podium by saying that Joe Biden's legacy is going to be the best economy in America. And he just had this profound, wonderful 4 years. I mean, to your point, Dinesh, we don't really know exactly what Joe Biden actually accomplished other than the negative, but it's because so many on both sides, Republicans and Democrats historically, have boosted their own self-interest through the office of the presidency. Donald Trump was the first one where his brand was actually more valuable than the brand of the White House. He took a step back coming into office in 2016. And what I always said when I represented him and when I worked for him was that that's exactly what you want in a president who truly wants to serve the best interests of all Americans, who is a businessman who understands this and doesn't actually need anything from the office itself. That is so wildly different than anyone we've had in office in modern American history. And I think that's why you're seeing the leadership of Trump take such a different tack.
I began, Jenna, on today's podcast trying to think about what is going on with these drones. And the reason that we are all in a little bit of a haze about it is because no one is really saying. Now, I'm assuming that this is not because it is impossible to find out, but you see the strangest things happening. I mean, Mayorkas is out there and he's like, well, you can't really like go look at a drone and find out what's in it and so on. He's acting like you've got this sort of almost confused dummy who sees these flying objects, and evidently these drones are popping up. I mean, they're popping up in California, they're popping up in New Jersey, they're showing up on near or on military bases. So something's up, right? I mean, somebody's putting these drones up. This is not a kid flying a kite. What do you make of it, and how do you explain the fact that we seem to know really nothing about this from the people who should be telling us?
Well, I hope that the government actually knows what is going on, and unfortunately, they're just not willing to be transparent and forthcoming with the American people. Now, I hope that they have a very good reason. Maybe there is some kind of national security or strategic interest behind this, and we will know more in the days and weeks to come, and they just can't share that. But I think that they could say that more directly rather than what the biggest issue is, of course, is that you and I, as regular citizens, as taxpayers, and as people who haven't been that impressed with the Biden administration, we simply don't trust them. This is all about restoring trust in the government, that if they say, hey, we're not telling you yet, but trust us, we're on this, that we actually take them at their word. But the Biden administration and the government as a whole over the last 30 and even 50 years has so eroded America's trust that they actually have our interests in mind, that we're not willing to lend them that type of capital and just wait and see what they're going to do about it. I mean, we remember the Chinese spy balloon that Biden waited until it had traversed across the country before they finally took care of it. These, like you said, are not just the drones that you pick up at Walmart and fly at 200, 300 feet. These are industrial grade. They should know what's going on. And if they don't, maybe shoot one down and then see exactly what's going on here. So, the other piece of it, though, Dinesh, is that we need to wait and see instead of just promoting kind of the clicks and likes on social media, because I'm seeing so many influencers that are just coming out with some of these wild theories that really are causing a lot of drama and potentially hysteria that's going on. So I'm not concerned yet like I want to take a wait and see approach, and I think that we all need to be very careful where we get our information and our sourcing from.
I mean, this just in the last 24 hours, I saw one post which I cannot take entirely seriously, saying that this is likely to be aliens from another planet. But I saw another one which was less fanciful but more disturbing, saying that somebody has smuggled nuclear materials into the country and that the drones are being put up by our own government. I mean, think about it. This would be one reason for why they're not explaining it, because it's theirs. They put the drones up there in the first place. But the idea is that they've got this porous border. And so all kinds of bad things are coming across. Now, they can't say, we let this happen. And so they've got to sort of try to get on. But again, I don't know what kind of weight, if at all, to put on something like this. So we are in the awkward position of, as you say, needing to have a little bit of a circumspect wait and see attitude. But the people we're waiting upon are not the most trustworthy. You know, it's a little bit like, I'm going to wait and see what really happened with the Las Vegas shooting. Well, gee, we're still waiting, right? We still don't know.
Right.
So they haven't told us. I'm still waiting to find out more about the background of Crooks, the guy who tried to assassinate Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania. We know a whole lot about Luigi Manzioni, but we know nothing about Crooks to this day. So all of this, I think, is feeding into what you described as I think, earned distrust on the part of this administration.
Yeah, 100%. And you said that so well. And I hope that we won't just move on from this when the drones just one day suddenly disappear and then the news cycle conveniently moves on to something else. Because for a while there, Butler, Pennsylvania was all that anybody talked about. And yet, as we know, the news cycle is not even a 24-hour news cycle anymore. Sometimes it can be as rapid as 15 minutes. We're on to the next thing. And so it is very possible that the government here is just waiting out the clock to say, okay, whatever the drones are doing, they'll accomplish their mission. And then we'll just move on conveniently to something else. And would we even know about this if it weren't for technology and people being able to film this and video this? I mean, I don't see, ABC or CBS, out there taking their own footage. So that's also a little bit concerning as well. Why isn't the mainstream media more interested in this?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably fair to say that if it weren't for platforms like X, there is no question that the Biden administration could easily go to Facebook and YouTube and just say, don't allow any footage of this to be shown on your channels. And at least if history is any guide, they would be most happy to oblige. So X has blown this whole thing, I think, wide open. Jenna, let's turn
to Elon.
Go Elon. Let's turn to a different topic, and that is the topic of Joe Biden and his potential pardons. I'm not so concerned about the pardons of the marijuana guys and so on. What I'm really concerned about, or at least what I want to focus on, is Joe Biden going to pardon himself? Is he going to pardon 80 people in the Biden administration? Is he going to give Liz Cheney a pardon and Adam Schiff and everybody he can think of who could possibly be on a Trump accountability list? And then I see Dan Goldman, the representative of New York, and he's shredding on TV. I don't remember if it's CNN or MSNBC, but he's basically saying, it's very troubling that, Trump could be pursuing retribution against political opponents. So as someone, Jenna, who has herself been a target of this kind of retribution from the existing regime, what do you make of all this? I mean, I don't think... Is it the case that these people do not see the irony of what they're saying? Are they so blind that they don't even know? Or do they know, but they're just cynically pushing forward in the hopes that the audience is too stupid to know?
Yeah, well, either they're stupid or playing stupid, and neither of those are a good look. And I'm just wondering, where was Dan Goldman when all of the weight of the federal government and the state government was after people from the previous Trump administration and campaign? So where was his tweet in support of me, saying all of this, and other people as well? So it is entirely hypocritical. And to that point, The Democrats have always been hypocritical. They've been willing to manipulate the powers that they are granted through the Constitution, or even not, to their own convenient end. So why wouldn't Biden simply pardon himself and everybody else on his way out? Because he doesn't have another election. And the Democrats, of course, are very concerned because Trump won the popular vote. He's going to have a mandate to at least correct the Department of Justice, to stop the weaponization of government. And it's not so much retribution as it is genuine justice to ask the questions of what exactly happened. Was there some collusion with the Biden administration with some of these states? I mean, those are questions that the American people deserve answers to. But the Democrats, of course, are going to use any power available, manipulate it, contort it out of its original intent. And because Biden does have the power, unlimited, of pardon, why wouldn't he exercise it? I'm just waiting for that because they don't care what precedent they set. They're just going to say that it's different for Trump.
The only thing I can see coming out of the Democrats and out of the left, and this is, well, some of it is coming out of the Bill Kristols of the world, and some of it is coming from others, where they're saying, well, you saw the Chuck Todd, I think, made this point a couple of days ago. He says, well, the problem with all this is it's going to give a license to Trump to go wild with his own pardon list. You know, in other words, I guess their point is that if Trump came in by himself and pardoned, let's say, January 6th defendants, FACE Act people who have been convicted, you know, pardons Navarro, pardons Bannon, pardons others, then Trump would be facing a blowback of some sort for doing that. I don't think that's necessarily true, but their point is that Biden is now essentially legitimized because Biden is using the same rhetoric that Trump has been using, right? Which is, in other words, the DOJ, they're going after me. They're going after my son. And of course, what makes this so ironic is that it's the Biden DOJ. It's Merrick Garland who's been willing to do Biden's doing. And arguably, Hunter Biden got such a sweetheart operation in which he was not charged for 30 things that he could have been charged with, and was only given this one minor gun charge that actually kept Joe Biden in the clear. But it seems like what you're saying, Jenna, is that you think that Biden is too far gone. He's not going to care. He's going to go ahead and do the pardons anyway.
I would not be surprised, and frankly, that would be my wager at this point if I was a betting person on politics. But we'll see. But my take on the Biden and the Hunter pardon is that actually served at least twofold purpose for the Democrats, because up front during the 2024 campaign, they were able to say, look, it's even my DOJ, nobody is above the law. And so, hey, we're prosecuting Trump, prosecuting Biden. So Republicans, you can't use this line of weaponization of government. That was one purpose. And I think that Biden full well knew that he was going to pardon Hunter. I don't buy any of it saying, oh, I've suddenly had a change of heart, sitting around the dinner table on Thanksgiving, please. But also the fact that this was an 11-year time span. What is conveniently covered in those years? Well, a lot of the stuff that we've been wondering about with the Biden crime family. Hunter joined the board of Burisma in, I think it was April of 2014. And so to have this pardon go back to January of 2014, the convictions, the minor convictions out of Delaware and DC also served as a smokescreen to say, hey, I'm just pardoning him for these. Let's focus on those two issues, while he extended the pardon so far back to actually cover the things that we should have been focusing on. So I would expect that if Biden is willing to do that, he's willing to do a lot more.
Yeah, wow. Guys, I've been talking to Jenna Ellis, host of Jenna Ellis in the Morning. Follow her on X at Real Jenna Ellis. Jenna, as always, thank you very much for joining me.
Thanks so much, Dinesh, and have a very Merry Christmas. And as always, I so appreciate your friendship. Thanks.
And to you too. I'm discussing my book, The Big Lie, now in paperback, and I recommend you grab a copy. It's a book that breaks a lot of new ground on this topic. And I know this because when I finished the draft of the book, I sent it to the leading, at that time, living historian of fascism, A. James Gregor at Berkeley. And he loved it, and he said, Dinesh, it's one of the rare books. He said, I've been teaching this topic for 30 years, and I've learned a lot from it because you did a lot of original research. And when we left off, I was talking about Mussolini's embrace of fascism, or to put it somewhat differently, Mussolini's move from socialism to fascism. Now, this is sometimes called a conversion, but as we'll see today, it's hardly a conversion. You don't convert from one species of leftism to another, or at least it's more of a lateral movement rather than a conversion. It's kind of like saying someone who is a Protestant becomes a Catholic, or the other way around. They aren't really converting in the same way as, say, an atheist converting to Christianity. That is, in fact, a real shift. Now, Mussolini wasn't the only person making this shift, this lateral shift. There were dozens, maybe hundreds, of leading socialists, many of them in Italy, but also people in Germany and France and other countries, and they were all becoming fascists. Now, we'll talk about why this is happening a little bit later, but here we just want to document this phenomenon and give it some detail, because when you make a general statement like this on a topic that most people don't know a lot about, they're like, well, who exactly? You can't settle the topic by going, well, it was Mussolini and 3 other guys. No, this was a procession of people moving into fascism. And in fact, we could go even further and say that the leading figures of early fascism all over Europe were all men of the left. So this is the significance, that fascism is quite literally, quite empirically, quite observationally coming out of the left. This is not some kind of a intellectual point. You just have to look and see, where did the fascists come from? Well, they came from the left. Quote, I'm quoting now A. James Gregor, the first fascists were almost all Marxists. Very telling, isn't it? All right, let's look at some examples. In France, Jean Alemán, who was famous for his role in the Dreyfus case. The Dreyfus case goes back to the 19th century. It involves Alfred Dreyfus, a Jew, being falsely accused. We don't have to go into the details of the Dreyfus case. Very kind of notorious case involving anti-Semitism. But in any event, the socialists were on the right side of that Dreyfus case. They were on Dreyfus's side, and they turned out to be right. Well, one of the leading defenders of Dreyfus, Jean Alemán, a man of the left, without a doubt, becomes a fascist. He was actually called the grand old man of French socialism. Another prominent French socialist, Georges Valois, also becomes a fascist, as does Marcel Diet. He's the founder of the Parti Socialiste de France. So here you have 3 prominent Frenchmen moving into fascism, all from the left. Now, this guy, Marcel Diet, he eventually quits the Socialist Party, and he starts his own pro-fascist party in 1936. Later, he becomes a Nazi collaborator with the Vichy regime. What's the Vichy regime? When the Germans invaded Paris and conquered France, they established a kind of puppet regime that was loyal to Germany. That's called Vichy France. Jacques Doriot, a French communist, who was the leader of a group called Parti Populaire Français, he also moved into the fascist camp. So we see here a trajectory of French leftists, French Marxists, French socialists, all becoming, or you may say laterally moving into fascism. Let's go to Belgium. In Belgium, the Belgian socialist theoretician Henri Daman transitions to becoming a fascist theoretician. In England, Oswald Mosley. Who's Oswald Mosley? He is a member of the Labour Party, but he is on the left wing of the Labour Party. He's kind of the way, let's say, Bernie Sanders is as a Democrat. He breaks with the Labour Party. Why? Not because he moves right. He says the Labour Party is not sufficiently leftist. It's not sufficiently radical. And this is the man, Oswald Mosley, who founds, quote, the British Union of Fascists, and he becomes the country's leading Nazi sympathizer. In Germany, the socialist playwright Gerhard Hauptmann embraces Hitler and this guy is producing plays for the entertainment of Germans throughout the Third Reich. And after the war, very interesting, the same man, Gerhard Hauptmann, becomes a communist. So think about it. He's a socialist. He moves into fascism and Nazism. And after the war, he's like, I'm a communist. And the reason it's so easy for a guy like him to do that is he's actually not changing his stripes. He's staying on the far left. He just realizes fascism is finished. Well, what's the most important type of Marxism that's still continuing? Soviet communism. Here we go. So it's natural, is the point I'm trying to make, for him to be able to, these aren't jagged movements from one side to the other, from left to right. He's essentially staying within the leftist pool and moving opportunistically from one leftist camp to another. So the same guy who's making plays in Nazi Germany, after the war, he starts staging his plays in Soviet-dominated East Berlin. In Italy, Giovanni Gentile, whom I've talked about earlier, moves from Marxism to fascism and brings with him a whole bunch of prominent Italian labor organizers. Here are some of their names: Ottavio Dinale, Tullio Massotti, Carlo Silvestri, Umberto Pasella. The socialist writer Agostino Lanzillo joins Mussolini's parliament as a member of the fascist party. So as a socialist, he's like, I'm going to join the fascist government. Why? Because, hey, we're all on the same team. Nicola Bombacci, one of the founders of the Italian Communist Party, becomes Mussolini's top advisor in Salo. Remember, Mussolini, once he was ousted from power, he's given a small area to run. It's called Salo. He goes for pure fascism, and you have an Italian communist advising Mussolini. So think about it. Why would he do that if fascism were on the right? What kind of sense would that make? I'm on the right. Guess what? I'm going to have a communist advising me. No, that's stupid. That makes no sense. Gentile's disciple, Ugo Spirito, who also served Mussolini at Salo, moves from Marxism to fascism and then right back to Marxism. So as soon as fascism collapses, the guy goes, okay, well, the only type of socialism left is Marxism. I'm back in the Marxist camp. Like Hauptmann, Spirito becomes a communist sympathizer after World War II, and he now publicly calls for a new synthesis between communism and fascism. So again, if fascism is on the right and communism is on the left, this would be gobbledygook, right? Let's have a new synthesis of the left and the right. Well, if you had a new synthesis of the left and the right, there wouldn't be anything left or right about it. And so those labels would cease to be meaningful at all. But on the other hand, if you're talking for combining two different things that are both on the left, well, that makes sense. That's kind of like someone saying, well, listen, we can't call for a reconciliation between atheism and Christianity. That's dumb. But what we can do is call for a synthesis between Catholicism and Protestantism. We can call for an overcoming of old theological and historical animuses. Why? Because both sides now have a common enemy in radical secularism. So all of this is a way of demonstrating the clear genesis, the clear origins, the genealogy of fascism as coming out of Marxism and coming out of the left. And the point I'll leave you with is that while some people might think of this in terms of conversion, these are not conversion stories. These men didn't switch from socialism to fascism. They became fascists kind of in the same way that Russian socialists became Leninists. How did they become Leninist Bolsheviks? Well, it was the socialist team that won. That's what led to the founding of the Bolshevik party. And so these socialists were like, we have a natural home here. And so they became Leninists. So like their Russian counterparts, these socialists believed themselves to be growing into fascism, maturing into fascism. Why? Because they saw fascism as the most well thought out and practical form of socialism for the new, which is to say for the 20th century.
Subscribe to the Dinesh D'Souza podcast on Apple, Google, and Spotify, or watch on Rumble, YouTube, and SalemNow.com.